Subsidy matter, as it were. Well, now we're joined by Atedo Peterside, who is a member of the National Economic Management Team. Thank you for coming this morning.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts on this? I mean, in the light of what seems to be going on in the country.
I think it was expected. You were never going to take an action of this nature, and you wouldn't expect controversy, anger, and so on. But I would like us to look at the facts. And it's about fiscal viability of a nation. Let me give you some examples of head. Nigeria is a country, we know 36 states. We are not a rich country, we're a poor country. I can tell you from official statistics, the poorest state in Nigeria is Jigawa State. Jigawa State, 95% of the people in Jigawa State are poor. Historically, and even last year, we spent 1.3 trillion on the fuel subsidy. It's about the fiscal viability of a nation in the sense that money that is being dispensed on a subsidy, consumed largely by Lagosians, they have the lion's share of the consumption. It's the upper class and the middle class who consume the lion's share of that petrol and so on in Lagos. That money does not belong to them. Jigawa State has its own share. From my own little analysis, Jigawa State should be getting 14 billion of that money transferred to them instead, between the state government and their own LGAs. The issue is that, does Jigawa State, the poorest state in Nigeria, where people who are poor, 95% of people are poor, do they have the right in 2012 to receive an extra 14 billion naira of money which rightfully belongs to them, which historically has been spent on Lagosians largely, and also diverted to neighboring countries? It's also about equity. So the point I'm making is that the poorest state in Nigeria is Jigawa. The second poorest state in Nigeria is Kebbi. In Kebbi, 89% of the people there are poor. I can go on and on. Bauchi, 86%. So I'm talking about equity as well. And now, people ask me things like, why isn't the federal government trying to emphasize this aspect? The federal government has to be careful. If they say what I'm saying, people will say, are you trying to turn Nigerians against themselves? Are you trying to tell people in Jigawa that they should get up and demand their rights? Well, I have no problem telling them that. Let the governor of Yobe, I saw a statement that ANPP said against the fuel subsidy. Yobe is a very poor state. They stand to get an extra 11 billion naira. Let the governor of Yobe get up and tell his people that he doesn't want the 11 billion. He prefers the money spent on Lagos and Lagosians. In any case, a subsidy, I'm in favor of subsidies if they are targeted at the poor and the poorest people.
Are they?
How is that possible right now? What we have right now is an arrangement whereby the richest person in the country, say Dangote, who's very wealthy, he has more cars than you and I. He gets the lion's share of the subsidy because he consumes more of it. How does that help the poor in Jigawa? So it's also about equity. You understand me? Now, I'm not saying that any state government or LGA doesn't have a right to design a subsidy for anything. For goodness sake, design it so it goes to the poor alone. Let me give you an example. Nothing stops if you share this money out, the states get an extra 400 billion, LGAs get an extra 200 billion. Federal government's own shares is an extra, let's say, 470 billion. Let each person that wants a subsidy take his own share and design one for his own people. And let me tell you how you design one. If you want to help the poor, it's happened before. You can create fuel vouchers in your own state, give to the poor and needy. Let them use that one to help them to buy petrol. How about subsidizing Dangote, subsidizing me, help the poor in Nigeria? So let us look at the facts and tell the facts properly. And I'm even disappointed at also the position, some state governments, and even the PDP members, some of them in the House of Assembly and Senate, because they are the ones that should be making this argument that this money belongs to people in Jigawa, Kebbi, Bayelsa, and so on. The money does not belong to the rich consumers in Lagos.
Assuming without conceding, but then, what those who are even perceived to be against deregulation are saying is that, yes, we support full, proper deregulation, but the government of the day has not done what it needs to do. They talk about corruption in that whole sector. What's happening to it? Who are those that are guilty of this, perpetrating this crime? I say, well, if you haven't put in place proper structures to make sure that corruption is tackled, what's the guarantee that this same quote-unquote cabal, I say, well, will not hijack this process when it comes up later?
Okay, let's look at the facts again. Even if we accept that the figure for 2012 would have been 1.1 trillion, right now that money is dispensed through NNPC and the Ministry of those who handle petroleum resources. My point is that is it not better to take that 1.1 trillion, give Jigawa their own share of 14, give Lagos its own share, and let each person now manage his own share in a way that there's less corruption. I agree with you, though, that the federal government and all governments on the country must do three things. Federal government must eliminate wasteful subsidies of the type which are enjoyed largely by the rich, like this one, because it's the biggest single item. The second thing they must do, I agree with you, is to streamline and reduce all government expenditures, because expenditures which are wasteful, they're legal, but they're wasteful, many of them. I'm sure you're aware that the federal government announced a committee headed by Steve Osanye. What is their task? To look at all federal government agencies and so on. There are multiple in Abuja. There are multiple agencies. Half of them, with due respect, doing nothing. They're collecting money because they are legal. Some of them are created by law. So the government can't even say, I close this one down because it will be legal. Now, the point, that committee, from my investigations, they're going to finish their work next month. There are a long number of agencies that have no business at all being in existence. They should be shut down, and their allocations to them should revert to more serious items. Now, even if the federal government wants to shut them down, if there was a law that established a particular agency, federal government cannot do it alone because they'll be breaking the law to have that agency shut down. National Assembly must now wake up after the committee has finished its work next month, and then amend those laws or strike them off, saying that Nigeria no longer needs the following agencies. But if we spend 12 months to achieve that, in the meantime, we have to keep on funding people who are doing nothing. So this is an urgent task. So the government must withdraw all wasteful subsidies. They must focus on recurrent expenditures, eliminate all waste. And 3, they must fight corruption. All 3 must go together. I'm sure you heard the story about the Police Pension Commission, ghost workers, 1 billion a month, and so on. Didn't you hear about INEC saying that in a bid to have people registered, some states recorded double registration, some big people? What has happened to going after them? I agree with you.
Well, anyway,
that we must take corruption together, eliminating all waste and so on.
Allow me come in here, because when we talk about fighting corruption, we talk about a couple of other things. People have been saying that, well, good enough first. That is why most state governments are even on the side of the federal government. We just have a handful of them, just a few of them saying that no to subsidy. But again, be that as it may, remember just January 4th here this year, we saw what happened in Singapore, where about 51% was actually taken off their take-home pay, to the extent that even the Prime Minister had a big reduction. People are asking, now that they already agree with the government that, well, some of them agree with the government that, well, the subsidies must be removed. They're saying everyone should have a taste of it. Why isn't the government also looking towards cost of governance, reduction in some of
it? I've already just mentioned that, you see, the major thing is that there are complete agencies that should even be shut down and save all that money.
I agree.
That task is ongoing. They're finishing their work next month.
They should have finished. If they had finished before coming with this removal, I'm quite sure the people wouldn't have even taken to the streets if they had done all of that.
Look, you have to pursue problems simultaneously. You have to, every day must fight corruption. Every day must fight waste. Every day must fight all these things. Now you have to move in unison. We also have a calendar year. Budget cycle is from January 1 to December. That committee has been working 24/7. They work through Christmas, they work through the New Year, and so on. They're finishing next month. The point I'm making is that even if they finish, the danger now is that they will finish. And the National Assembly, which you mentioned, Senate and House of Rep, who are paid a fortune, they pay themselves a fortune legally. If they don't get up and amend the laws to scrap these agencies, the agencies will still remain. Some of them will even go and lobby Senate that please don't pass a law to remove us. The money we'll get, we'll share with you, and so on. Let us demand action. It's no use just quarreling with the visible one of fuel subsidy. The waste in the system is what we should all get together. And if something that comes out of all this is that on account of all this noise and protest, Senate wakes up, realizing that the whole country is watching them, they pay themselves a fortune. They should get up, amend laws, scrap agencies, save the country, billions of naira being wasted. Now, I've not heard any single senator, those in opposition, Action Congress, CPC, AMPP, have you heard anyone of them get up and say, gentlemen in Senate, we're paying ourselves too much?
Why would they say so? Isn't it the same with the executive? It's just
true. I agree with you that everybody should sacrifice. I'm supporting you and saying that let those in AMPP get up and say, those in Senate from our own area too, they should get up and argue, lower our income. Have they said so? How about CPC? Have they said so? So as they get into in there, the previous Senate had more people from PDP, not so. This time has less. How come new people came in from the position and quietly enjoyed the large money to themselves?